For guys who are chasing aesthetics, you should probably focus very heavily on your delts. Hey everybody, I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. And again, it's one of these things where a lot of guys, they don't understand this. And no, I am not saying I have the best delts, by the way. I want to make this statement. I've only really started focusing on things like delts and biceps within the last year. So it's something I am actually having to do myself now that I'm pursuing aesthetics more and less powerlifting. But this is something that was well known in classic aesthetics that a lot of guys have forgotten. And you see a lot of guys at the gym who they're not aware of this. When it's like the reality is if you are trying to get as aesthetic as possible in a relatively short time frame, right? Because it really does take time to build a lot of muscle and proportion. What most guys focus on are sometimes the wrong things. They'll focus a lot on something like biceps, okay? Or maybe biceps and pecs, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. Those absolutely do contribute to your aesthetics, particularly, that front view, because those are very much show muscles you see in the mirror from the front, okay? But when it comes to actually getting that shape and having a V-taper and looking like you have really wide shoulders and all of that, some of the best things that you can absolutely do are to focus on the delts, then the lats to a large extent, and then get lean, okay? Because as you get leaner, obviously these things are all going to improve. So I do want to be clear there for the guys who are chasing, again, the more the aesthetic look, or what a lot of people think is like classic bodybuilder lines, right? A classic physique. The Steve Reeves look, the Greek statue look, right? It used to be referred to as the Apollyon look, by the way. The aesthetics term is a more modern term. Older books and writings and things, when I was much, much, much younger, they always talked about Apollyon versus Herculean physiques. And so the guys who are trying to get really big and jacked are going for the Herculean look, and those who are pursuing the more aesthetics are wanting an Apollyon look. And when the Apollyon look, certain muscles are emphasized over others. Okay, like one of the muscles that gets de-emphasized for the Apollyon look would be the trapezius. In fact, guys who were chasing that look would generally try to avoid direct trap work because your traps are going to get worked a lot. Even to the point where something like pull-ups will take priorities over rows, so that again, the upper back and the traps get a little less stimulus relative to the lats. Okay, because again, lats are going to tend to be king for that as far as even your back goes. But yeah, what you don't want are big overdeveloped traps and delts that lag behind it. Okay? People will ask why. Because it makes your shoulders look narrower. Okay? And big, massive traps are not necessarily aesthetic, and they're going to get big. Like your traps are going to grow no matter what you do. If you follow a program with a lot of big basic movements, you're going to have big traps. Like, dude, if you deadlift in a row, your traps are going to be big. You throw in any direct delt work, your traps are going to grow. Right? They're absolutely going to grow. They're a critical muscle in all those big movements. And so guys forget about that, and they'll spend maybe sometimes too much time working on the traps and not enough on the delts. But the reality is delts are what give you that aesthetic look. Once you have lats, once you're leaner, I obviously am not as lean as I need to be here. I'm working on it. But it's going to be delts. And there's a historical context for that. Because people say, well, things that are aesthetic, well, what makes it aesthetic? It seems very subjective, right? It's a lot of human biology involved. And here's what we've noticed in humans. And there's a historical context for this that biologists figured out. All right. We have more androgen receptors in our delts and our upper chest, and even to some extent actually traps. But the delts and upper chest have more androgen receptors than the other muscles in the body. Okay, androgen receptors are what testosterone binds to. It's also what anabolic steroids bind to. Okay, so testosterone is going to cause a disproportionate development in those muscles. Okay, it's going to cause a disproportionate development. And so people would say, well, what's the reason for that? Why would that be? Because that is what made men look more formidable from a distance. Okay? Back in prehistoric times, tribal life going back for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, we didn't have ways to communicate until we got up close. Okay, you saw everyone from a distance. And tribes in which the men had wider shoulders, they looked more formidable from a distance. People were less likely to mess with them. They just looked bigger and stronger. Because when you're looking at other men across a plain or whatever on a hill, the shoulders are what you're going to see most effectively at 100 meters away, 200 meters away, 500 meters away. It's what's going to give kind of that wider silhouette. Okay? So therefore, it was in our best interest as a species for the men to develop wider shoulders. Also, it was because, again, it was an outward mark of the higher testosterone levels. So if you also look at attraction and prowess, if, say, women, because keep in mind, our current marriage model didn't always exist, right? Definitely not for early human development. Again, sign of strength, virility. How about even inside for tribal rankings? If men didn't want to, fight and die doing these things, the wider shoulders. So again, men with higher testosterone levels, became an outward sign. So this is going back all the way through human prehistory. So there's probably a biological trait within us to where we notice this, because it has always been a sign of higher testosterone for that upper chest, for the wider shoulders, all of that area, right? Again, biological wiring. So we notice it. We notice it as a sign of masculinity and virility, and then that transfers to how we perceive things aesthetically. We're going to perceive that as a species biologically that way. So it's not just about art and subjectiveness. There's probably a biological component to that. Hey, all right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.